This presentation is going to be on contract manufacturing. That means obviously you're interested in learning how to take a product to market and have somebody manufacture that for you. So a lot of you know that with Peter and I, we've done a lot of digital publishing over the years, and have been doing the conferences for a while. And when John Bedini was alive, Peter and I were his leading distributor for all the battery chargers and solar charge controllers and even for the sideband generators, which were manufactured at his company just a few minutes from here. And I never got into any of the manufacturing part, and all I wanted to do was just basically distribute and make these available, and which is the easy part. And I was kind of intimidated about the whole manufacturing process. And the first product that I even looked at possibly manufacturing was, after John had passed, I wanted to completely reverse engineer and understand how to create my own circuit boards and do all that to get the RPX into production. Otherwise, I don't know what would happen to it, because that circuit is a little bit different, does the same thing, but is different than what's publicly disclosed in the book, the circuit that he shared. So, I learned how to do the program to create the circuit. I printed out the transfers for the PCB board, T-shirt iron on a piece of copper, and did the whole 9 yards, etched it myself, and it took me but about a dozen units, and I decided it was real easy for me to see that there's no way I'm doing this, But it was a good experience because I saw what the whole process was, and so, the first thing I did was, after I had it all created and I knew how to do the whole thing myself, coming up with the bill of materials, this and that, and trying to find out how to get a quote, what is it going to cost me, and to have all those questions answered. Kind of took a while to even know that there is this contract manufacturing kind of thing that I knew was out there. Are there companies local can do it? Am I going to be able to afford it? Do I have to send this out to China, or what the deal was, which I pretty much wanted everything made here in Spokane. And so I kind of got the in and out of that whole process. And there's a lot of subtle nuances to it and everything. But if you're interested in kind of going that route with something that you really want to have developed, and you don't want to be building, these things where it takes over your life and you're sitting there in your shop doing it, where you have absolutely no free time other than just doing that, then this is definitely going to be a presentation for you. Seth, who's going to be presenting, most of his background is actually in the financial sector, and he is the financial controller of a company called SciTech over in Spokane, who Jeff and I are working with right now, and they're going to be manufacturing all the cases for us, and eventually probably more things, and we're even going to look at possibly having some of the assembly done there. And so, Seth has been intimately involved, being around a lot of the contract manufacturing kind of businesses for quite a while. And so, help me welcome Seth.
Thanks, man. Where I want to start through the introduction is I want to give you guys a brief history of manufacturing, really like top level snapshot of what it is, where we're at today, and then specifically talk about sheet metal manufacturing, how then you go through the process of contracting a manufacturer, and then we'll conclude what some of my conclusions are, and then open up for some Q&A. Toyota today cranks out a Corolla off the shop floor every 45 seconds. Toyota is where we're ramping up to now, guys. So the Toyota method, back in the early 20th century again, Toyota was just a little car company, a handful and a small operation. Can't tell you exactly how big, but they were small. And they weren't known for much, right? They were known for rinky-dink cars that break down. A lot of times they had lots of problems. They couldn't compete domestically. They couldn't compete internationally. They had to figure something out. So they came to learn from Ford. They came to the States, they learned the process, and they tried to integrate it into their own markets overseas in Japan. The problem was the demand in Japan is opposite of the States. They couldn't have one car and crank out 1 million of them. they had a demand for high product mix. We're talking different colors, different chassis, different tires, different everything, right? The Japanese people didn't want to just buy one car. They wanted to have many different types of cars, different colors, etc. Options, customization. That created a roadblock for these guys using the Ford model, because Ford, linear, streamline, right? One flow process. So the Japanese, over the next 40 years, spent time improving that flow. And what they did is they started to batch things in smaller quantities and create processes that were more tailored to specifically what they were building. And so it created smaller what we call cellular processing in teams. And so it's isolated to the Corolla, the Camry, the Sequoia, right? It's looped specifically for that. It's not just one thing. It's the process flow, but in many different facets for many different products. And that brings us to lean manufacturing. So Toyota, 4 decades, 1940s and 1980s, developed this system. And a man by the name of James Womack caught on to it, went to Japan, learned the system, brought it back to the United States and coined it as lean manufacturing. Womack can be quoted as saying, "How can performance be improved? Sweat and longer hours are not the answer, but will be employed if no one knows how to work smarter." So, what is lean? What is, the best way I think we can define it when I met with my continuous improvement guy at SciTech, lean is the elimination of waste through continuous improvement. Ever working towards getting better and reducing things that don't add value and getting down to the meat and bones. It's trimming the fat constantly. Every time we have an opportunity to improve, we're trying to do so. Lean is focused on the customer. If you look at the diagram over to the right here, this is weird, right? This is inverted from normal. The pyramid's upside down. I'm really happy you asked me this question, because the same company we're working with out of Coeur d'Alene, we're finding cost reductions for this customer. And he's able, once we get up and running and get this going in a few months, he's going to actually be able to price himself at a point where he can compete with goods that are produced in China. The reason being is through lean manufacturing, right? The Chinese, let's say, they're a great example, right? Because they're the biggest manufacturer in the world per capita, right? And those guys, they're able to control a lot of things that we're not, and they're able to do a lot of things that we're legally not allowed to do. But they deal with freight costs, right? They deal with porting fees, et cetera, and tariffs if we impose them. Those costs end up adding up, but still at a point where typically we can't match it even. It's been like that historically for the last 20 years. What we're finding, though, is introducing lean processes and cutting out waste, constantly eliminating the things that don't make us money. We're finding that creates value for us, is able to make our costs more competitive, and we control our material far greater too. Our levels of quality is one of the key focuses. We're quality checking throughout the entire process, right? What you are buying is going to be precision within a tolerance you say. If you say, I want this to be within 0.06 of an inch in any direction on this given bend, right? We make sure that it's within 0.06 of an inch. So every time you're getting a product exactly how you want it.
So it's great to have, I agree what he was saying, but do you run into an issue with you pass on the costs, either you absorb the extra costs or you actually pass on the cost to the customer, and customer will appreciate because it was made in locally or US with a higher percent? How do you manage that part, at least your customers? Does that, because it's a big factor.
Yeah, so in our particular business, I would say the cost of the final product to the customer is not nearly as important as the quality, the delivery, and the security of their design not being leaked because of our particular business.
And I would have to agree with that. You mentioned that makes me think how I think we operate really out of 3 states. California, Washington, Idaho, and a little bit in Montana. For the most part, though, it's really close. So when Trevor needs to hop in a plane and go to Los Angeles, he can be there. He can drive to Seattle in a minute, right? So we do a similar thing, and you're absolutely right. That's the way that you keep control and you keep security of the information that you're dealing with and products that you're working with. Absolutely agree with you. Thanks for sharing that.